We have to talk about Pipp Petals. Come on in, you're not in trouble. I love Pipp. She's charming, she's funny, she's relatable, she's voiced by the immensely talented stage and musical veteran AJ Bridell, who could rival Tabitha St. Germain for sheer charisma alone at half her age, and it's honestly no wonder there are jokes cracked about Pipp being the new main character of Gen 5. But there's something really peculiar about her character that has been bothering me since A New Generation. And now that Chapter 4 and the new special Bridal Woodstock are just around the corner, I think it's time to confront my feelings. For lack of a better phrase, Pipp has fellow kids energy. There's not a standardized word for this, but you know it when you feel it. Anytime someone tries to appeal to a generation that came after them in a way that comes across as disingenuous or uncanny. The name comes from a scene in 30 Rock where Steve Buscemi infiltrates a high school in a comically bad disguise, and it's been shorthand for that kind of pandery feeling ever since. But I also love this show, and I can't just blindly affix that label without doing her the courtesy of at least looking into it a little, because it clearly wasn't done without some degree of forethought. Her first lines in the series are delivered via Jumbotron livestream to the citizens of Zephyr Heights as the second in line to the throne, in addition to being a social media star and a singer. She wears a lot of hats, so it can get a little muddled, but it's clear she cares a lot about her fans, her feed, and the citizens of Zephyr Heights in a way that comes across as mostly genuine. And in the same way that several episodes of Friendship is Magic would have fallen apart if ponies had internet access to all of Equestria, there are plots in Gen 5 that only work because Pipp is so connected. Mostly about finding lost children and escaping from seaside caves and the inside of pumpkins, but still important life skills. There are also entire plot points in Make Your Mark that revolve around her having her social media traffic eaten by a new flashier thing in town, and 40% of those words would bounce right off the Gen 4 cast if you tried to explain a story like that to them. My problems with the character arise when I start to discuss whether she appears to pander to fans with this additional focus on social media and technology in general. Unfortunately for me, the idea of pandering is its own little semantic trap that I don't have time to get into. I wanted to discuss this in a future video, but every fan of the My Little Pony franchise accepts when they walk in the door that the property is owned by Hasbro, a holding company for several extremely recognizable brands whose primary goal is to profit off of children's need to play. It's a super interesting semantic discussion that would unfortunately take the focus off of Pipp, but in general, each of the characters in the franchise were designed to appeal to a target demographic first and to create fully fleshed out characters second. According to legend, although I have still not found a source for this anecdote, Lauren Faust was given the stipulation during creation of Friendship is Magic that one of the characters had to be a fashion horse, because that would appeal to the prospective show's target demographic. Fortunately for the Brony community, there seems to be a real concerted focus with Generation 5 to create three-dimensional characters with multiple interests. In 2022, Equestria Daily posted a series of leaked slides from the production team's core brand asset toolkit, which outlined facets of the locations, story, and characters, and how they would lend themselves to an engaging play experience with the brand's core demographic. From my perspective, I'm happy to admit that the release media so far has done a really nice job realizing these multifaceted characters. Sunny is an activist, but gets freaked out by being in the limelight. Zip is the most athletic pony in the group, but also loves being a detective and solving mysteries. Hitch believes in upholding the law, but he also loves critters and taking care of his dragon son. Maybe a bit too much of the latter, but they're trying. The important thing is that the series is still pretty young, and creating fleshed out characters takes time. But when it comes to Pipp, she's one of the characters that's taken the most time to get going.
I actually like taking time to be pampered. It's my favorite thing. Right after singing, spooky stories, and selfies.
It began in early drafts of A New Generation, when a lot of Pipp's involvement with the primary conflict of that movie was pushed to the side to help the film flow better, and a lot of the secondary shading has been really slow going comparatively. We've had some really interesting character foiling between her and her sister, but not a ton of care towards her specifically. There were some awesome hints in October when the Halloween Tell Your Tale episode showed us that Pipp was really into horror and the general spooky aesthetic, but there wasn't really time in a 5-minute gag series to flesh out a secondary interest like that. I know that they'll keep trying, but for now what we have so far is a pretty flat character that, while charismatic as heck, feels as though she's been provided as a bit of an afterthought by a team that wanted to appeal to a younger generation and had one character trait and nothing else. I think that apparent lack of care is a big part of the reason that she's giving off this vague, uneasy sense of being a lazy facsimile of what a kid might be interested in. I'm sorry if that seems like a vague, nitpicky answer, but I think I'm justified in discussing the portrayal of Pipp's relationship with technology, especially in a show that appeals to a younger demographic, and discussions about friendship in a digital space are much more complex than face-to-face friendship. Friendship is Magic is one of the most emotionally intelligent kid shows I've ever seen, and sometimes I worry that if this show isn't careful, it'll teach the wrong lesson to an audience of increasingly vulnerable children. Pipp Petals represents this perfect storm of performer, royal, and social media personality, all three of which are examples of something you might have heard of called a parasocial relationship between her and her citizens, fans, etc. This is where a content creator, through a communication channel like print, TV, or the internet, provides regular content to a person or group of people who then begin to experience the interpersonal illusion of being friends with this person. The idea was coined in the 50s, but it's a phenomenon that's become increasingly prevalent with the advent of social media. Some of the most popular streamers and YouTubers have audiences that skew especially young, and while I don't think it's explicitly the responsibility of a show to elaborate on the dangers of celebrity worship online, I think it would behoove the legacy of Friendship is Magic, one of the most emotionally intelligent shows of all time, to at least mention it in passing that the people whose content you consume online are not inherently your friends. But for every moment of lip service Pip gives her pipsqueaks about the importance of being yourself, there's another scene of her encouraging them to hang out with her and develop beauty products that they can then go out and buy from her store. It's something that seems innocuous now, but if left unchecked could lead to some awkward signaling issues down the road. Remember when Spike developed a childhood crush on Rarity in the pilot that was canonized by Lauren Faust online last year? It was cute and totally something that Spike would do, but that kind of signaling sort of fell by the wayside as the series continued, resulting in a vacuum of emotional intent that left a lot of fans feeling really weirded out by the one-sidedness of that relationship. Imagine if a year down the line, the only thing you knew about the Pipsqueaks was that they spent their time camping Pip's feed so they could show up whenever she needed recommendations on where to get a good hoagie. That's not endearing. That's Pikmin. I don't want to make it seem like I'm tearing apart the hashtag relatable character on a whim here. I think that it's really awesome that the new team at the helm thought they could take on everything that comes with moving Equestria into the digital age. But something dawned on me while I was writing this essay that made me rethink a lot of my complaints about this character and why I'm going to ask you to take what I've said here with a grain of salt. When I see current shows and fiction attempt to pander to the current youth, the childhood they're alluding to is no longer my childhood. I was barely the target demographic when I joined the fandom, and it's a separation that's only going to get worse. Facebook launched when I was in the 5th grade, and I was already in high school by the time it became commonplace to have an online social media presence. As a result, I didn't grow up in influencer culture where it was common for people to discuss social media like it were a hobby. The closest thing we had were wish fulfillment fantasies like Hannah Montana and other similar shows that appealed to the need of kids to be heard. That doesn't make my childhood inherently any better or worse than that of, say, my 8-year-old nephew. They're both valid experiences, just a group of people trying to grow up in the time and place they were plopped into the world. That's part of why Gen 5 has these throwaway jokes about pony versions of applications that kids these days might actually be expected to be knowledgeable about.
Did you get that photo I just dewdropped to you?
The most perfect accessory for a ponygram selfie?
None of my clip trots have been doing well.
We definitely weren't up watching Yoo-Hoo videos.
Shadow banished! I don't know what that means, but it sounds ominous. Thank you, Jazz.
So I've spent the last several weeks trying to confront the possibility that I might not have any idea what I'm talking about. I hope that I at least articulated my points in a way that didn't seem too get off my lawn, but it's so hard to feel as though I'm talking about this character with any degree of authority when I'm doing research for this video and I find out that AJ Bridell is younger than I am. Pipp Petals can at times feel like a set of character traits cobbled together by an adult production team to sell toys, but seeing a character with so much genuine energy in a show for the next generation of kids helps me know that we're still taking kids seriously, even if I'm no longer part of that group. Thanks a lot for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of Pipp Petals. I personally find her really funny, and I hope that she doesn't put off too many of you. I really enjoyed calling out the pony versions of different apps, including Feedbag, which Pip said was fake, but my headcanon is that that was a stealth dig at Facebook, since the Facebook crowd skews much older now, and Seashell and the gang don't really know what that is. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching.